All right, let's talk about a word that gets thrown around a lot: blockchain. Look, if you're a business analyst, this isn't just some tech fad you can ignore. It's becoming a really critical part of the toolkit. So let's cut through the noise and figure out what this actually means for you and your job.
You know how it is. You say blockchain, and what does everyone immediately think of? Bitcoin, right? And hey, they're not wrong completely. But saying blockchain is just Bitcoin, that's kind of like saying the internet is just for email. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of what's really going on. The way you really need to think about it is this: blockchain is a foundational technology. I mean, seriously, think back to the early days of the internet. It wasn't just another gadget, right? It fundamentally rewired how we live, work, and connect. That's the scale of change we're looking at with blockchain.
So let's get beyond the whole Bitcoin thing. To really get what this means for us as BAs, we have to see blockchain for what it truly is. It's a massive shift away from all the centralized systems we take for granted, banks, governments, big tech companies, and it's a move towards something completely different: a network built on decentralization and trust.
Okay, so this idea of a trust-based network, how does that even work? What's holding it all together? Well, it all boils down to three core principles. And trust me, these aren't just for the techies. This is where the magic happens. This is where all the business value comes from. You get these three things, and you'll get blockchain. And here they are, the three big pillars: decentralization, immutability, and transparency. Get these three working together, and you've suddenly created a system that you can trust without needing a big bank or government agency in the middle to tell you it's okay.
All right, let's tackle the first one: decentralization. Just picture it: a network where there's no single boss, no one company, no government, no single point of failure. The power is spread out among everyone who uses it. So what's the big deal? Well, it means you can cut out the middleman. Suddenly, you don't need a bank to sign off on your payment because the network itself does the verification.
Okay, next up is immutability. And honestly, this one is a total game changer. It's simple. Once a record is added to the chain, it's there forever. You can't change it, you can't delete it. It is literally set in digital stone. What you get is a perfect, unchangeable, tamper-proof record of everything that's ever happened. And the third piece of the puzzle is transparency. On most blockchains, everyone can see what's going on. Every transaction is out in the open for all participants to see. Now, just pause and think about that. You combine that kind of transparency with the fact that nothing can ever be changed. What do you get? You get a system with accountability baked right in. Trust becomes automatic. Okay, so decentralization, immutability, transparency, great concepts. But what do we as business analysts do with them? How does this actually show up in our day-to-day work? Well, this is where it gets really exciting. This is where we step into a whole new playground of possibilities.
Let's kick things off with a perfect example: the supply chain. I mean, what a mess, right? It's this incredibly complex web of suppliers, shippers, warehouses, retailers, and nobody really knows what's happening outside of their own little bubble. This is where the BA becomes the hero. Imagine you're tasked with tracking, say, a shipment of life-saving medicine. Your job is to figure out what information do we need to capture at every single step, from the factory to the pharmacy. You're the one defining those critical data points that prove it's authentic, that it was kept at the right temperature. You're designing the very system that makes that entire journey transparent and totally trustworthy.
And then, of course, there's the big one: finance. Let's be real, blockchain is set to completely revolutionize the way money moves. Have you ever tried to send money overseas? It's slow, it's expensive, it bounces between like 5 different banks. As a BA, your role would be to map out that entire painful process, find every single bottleneck, and then design a whole new flow on the blockchain. A flow where payments can move from me to you instantly for pennies with no one in between. Okay, let's bring it even closer to home. Let's talk about some of our most personal, most sensitive data: our healthcare records and our identity.
Right now, your medical history is probably split across a dozen different doctor's offices and hospitals, right? It's a mess. The BA's job here is to architect a completely new system, a system where you, the patient, own your data. You have a single, secure medical record that you control. You grant access to doctors when you need to. This is a huge deal for both privacy and just better healthcare.
So you can see, right? We're not just talking about making a process a little bit faster. This is about completely rethinking how entire industries work. And that means, for us BAs, our role has to evolve too.
our skills have to level up. So what does that actually look like? It really breaks down into three key shifts, three new mindsets that you've got to adopt if you want to be a leader in this space. First, you need to think of yourself as a trust architect, and we'll dig into that in a second. Second, you have to get good at analyzing smart contracts. These are basically business rules written in code that run automatically and can never be changed. And third, get ready for some wild stakeholder management. We're talking about networks where your customers, your suppliers, maybe even your competitors are all working together. I really want to focus on that first one, becoming a trust architect, because it's probably the biggest mental shift for any BA. This is where your job title might say business analyst, but what you're really doing is designing trust. This really gets to the core of it. The questions you ask fundamentally change. It's no longer just, what are the requirements for this feature? Now, it's, how do we get a dozen different companies who don't necessarily trust each other to agree that this transaction is true and valid? See the difference? You're not just documenting rules, you're engineering the consensus for an entire network. But here's the really cool part. You don't need to throw out your entire BA toolkit and become a coder. In fact, it's the opposite. All those core skills you've spent years honing, critical thinking, stakeholder communication, problem solving, they're not just relevant, they are more valuable than ever. You are the essential link between the wild potential of this tech and actual real-world business solutions. Look, blockchain isn't just another technology trend. It's a whole new frontier for what a business analyst can be. Our job is evolving from just making things more efficient to literally building trust into the fabric of business. The opportunity is massive. So the real question is, are you ready to start building?